One of the questions I get asked most frequently is what can be done to improve the vacant and blighted properties along the Ivory Street corridor and at the former Armstrong Cork site. I am pleased to let you know that in the coming months, the Braintree Planning Department will be introducing a new zoning policy that has the potential to transform these properties. The policy is a new state law known as the MBTA Communities Act. This 6-minute video is here to help you learn more about it. I want to thank Lily Link from the Citizens Housing and Planning Association for her help in providing the technical information about zoning and this new law. Let's get started. First, what is zoning? Zoning is a set of rules or a code that regulates how towns can use their land. Zoning codes include things like the height and size of buildings, distance between buildings and other land uses, what the land can be used for, residential, commercial, industrial uses, or open space. It can also include requirements for things like parking, affordability, and design standards. Zoning codes are rules for what can be built and where. Do we want parks next to industry? Do we want schools next to highways? Zoning codes help answer these questions. When thinking about these big questions, zoning is also a tool we can use to help meet our goals. As you know, Braintree is working on our master plan, our vision of how we see our community 10 years from now. The master plan sets out a lot of aspirations to deal with housing, transportation, climate resiliency, diversity, and affordability. Updating our zoning code, which hasn't been fully updated in decades, is a way to help us accomplish our goals. And in the case of MBTA Communities Act, the state is requiring us to do it soon. Towns and cities across the state have outdated zoning codes that have contributed to the housing shortage, driving home prices higher and higher. Without enough housing near where people work, residents have been forced to move farther away from their jobs, which has led to more time driving. That means more emissions, more congestion, and more time in our car instead of with our families and friends. Governor Baker signed the MBTA Communities Act in 2021 as a way to help address the state's housing shortage and make sure we are able to meet the state's ambitious decarbonization goals, which includes encouraging more housing to be built closer to public transportation. This law applies to 177 cities and towns in Massachusetts that have access to the MBTA. Now, let's talk about what this act requires of the 177 cities and towns, including Braintree. It requires the creation of zoning for multifamily housing near transit. It is not a mandate to build, it's a mandate to create the zones that will make it easier to build multifamily housing. It requires that the zone be of a reasonable size and near the MBTA station, and that at least 15 units per acre be allowed in the zone. 15 units per acre is not skyscrapers, but rather a wide range of housing types such as townhomes, duplexes, triple-deckers, fourplexes, and small apartment buildings. And we'll get to what this looks like in District 5 in a few minutes, so stick with me. Finally, there can be no age restrictions on the units. They must all be suitable for families. The Braintree Planning Department is strategically looking at areas of town near the T station that already allow for multifamily housing with a special permit and are outside of established neighborhoods. To comply with the law, Braintree's MBTA community zone must eliminate the special permit requirement in the designated areas. The planning board will continue to have oversight if and when multifamily housing projects are proposed. As you may know, the many areas on the map of the proposed MBTA zone near the red line are already built out. And after MBTA zoning is adopted, it will be up to individual property owners to decide if they want to redevelop their property under the new zoning. No one is required to change their property or develop new housing, though I am hopeful that this new law will help encourage redevelopment of two problematic properties in District 5, 280 Ivory Street and the Armstrong Cork property, both of which are vacant and in disrepair and near the T station. One of the requirements of the MBTA Communities Act is that the MBTA community zone must allow for housing that is at least 15 units per acre. This is a very hard thing to picture, so I did some research, I got on my bike, and I found many examples of residents in District 5 today that are already meet or exceed this criteria. And I thought it would be helpful to run through some of these examples. There's a triple decker on Academy Street that's 15 units per acre. There's a 3-family on Hancock Street that's 24 units per acre. There are condominiums on Hancock Street that are 29 units per acre. And in this example, there's 3 stories in the front and 2 stories in the back. There are apartments in South Braintree Square above the Braintree Rug Company that equate to 42 units per acre. This is called a mixed-use development with residential and commercial. There are apartments on French Ave that are 52 units per acre, and this building is a replica of what was here about 100 years ago. There are apartments in South Braintree Square that are 60 units per acre. This is also a mixed-use development with housing on top and in the back and a salon in the front. More housing options is one of the things I hear about most from residents. Empty nesters want to downsize. Recent graduates and young professionals want small, affordable places to land after college. Workers are looking for housing near jobs, and young families are looking for stability and mobility within one community. Encouraging different types of housing options can help fill these gaps. Braintree's proposed MBTA zone will be walking distance to the family-run businesses in South Braintree Square, the supermarket, the library, parks, and the lake. All destinations within easy walking distance, encouraging more walking and biking and less driving. If you've ever gone on a real estate website, you'll notice that there are now walk scores associated with properties. Neighborhood walkability and proximity to transit is positively correlated with higher home values. They are also much more accessible for those who don't or can't drive. They provide autonomy for kids and older adults, and it's also better for overall health and the human environment. In the coming months, you can expect to be hearing more about the MBTA Communities Act. Before the end of this year, the state must approve our proposed zone, and the town council must vote on its adoption. This is a state law, and as your counselor, I want to make sure we can make it the best it can possibly be for Braintree.